Hello and welcome to Jolineknitsalot. This is my show about knitting and crafting and the things I get up to here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. It's a gloomy November morning today. November's here can be quite cloudy and we're starting to get to the point where we don't get as much sunlight as we used to. So you may find me sitting here with a lot of lights because it's quite dark in the mornings now. How are things where you are? Did you have a good Halloween? We had lots of little kids coming to the door, so that was really fun. My kids are have outgrown Halloween. They don't really get dressed up or get excited about it anymore. So it was really fun to have a bunch of kids walking around the neighborhood getting excited about trick-or-treating. But now that it's November, I am starting to think about Christmas. There have been a lot of years where the fall has been super busy and I just haven't had time to think about Christmas until all of a sudden it's December and I'm scrambling. But this year I think that I am in a good place. I've started to think about what kinds of things I want to make for gifts. I've actually started doing some gift knitting and I think I have some plans in place. So I'll talk about that with you as the episode moves along. First, I'd like to tell you about what I'm wearing, and that is my Sunset Sweatshirt. I just finished it this week, and I'm delighted with it. There were some very tense moments. I was worried about whether or not I'd have enough yarn. Well, I knew I'd have enough yarn, but I was worried about whether the sweater would be long enough for me to be comfortable in. I am not usually someone who wears quite cropped things, although I'm finding that more and more I'm getting more comfortable with my hemline of my sweater coming up a little bit more. But why don't I step back and give you a look at how it fits on me. Ta-da! I think that the length is really nice. I'm quite happy with that, the length. The other thing that this sweater has in it that we talked about a little bit before was bust darts. And if I sort of come over here, maybe you can see where the bust darts are happening right here. And of course on the other side right there. The bust darts, let's talk about that. Bust darts are made to lengthen a sweater in the front so that if you have a larger bust, which would make a sweater creep up if it didn't have that extra length, it helps it to have a uniform hemline in the front and the back so that your sweaters don't ride up in the front. This pattern was really well laid out. It gave you instructions on how to measure yourself. So for the purposes of this pattern, you measured yourself right under your armpit at your smallest chest point. And then you measured yourself at your fullest chest point and figured out what the difference was. If the difference was less than 2 inches, I think, you didn't need to do bust darts. But after that, there was 4, I think, different sizes of bust darts, depending on what the difference was between your measurement right under your armpit and at your fullest bust. I chose the 3rd largest, I believe, set of bust darts. And in the case of this pattern, it was simply a short rows. So the short rows go back and forth. Maybe if I stand up, this is gonna get graphic. The bust darts sort of start about at where your breasts are sticking out, and then they go wider and wider. So they would traverse back and forth this way so that if you can see, if we look back again where those bust darts are here, you can see that as that line goes down, the length of the short row increases so that it's like a trapezoid that sits like this and increases the length of the fabric in the front. I, for one, am very happy with how this sweater fits me. I feel like in the front, that added length makes me feel very comfortable. I'm not tugging at the sweater. I'm not pulling at it in any way. It's a very comfortable fit. The one thing I think that would have improved this sweater just a little bit is the fact that the front and the back of this pattern are knit exactly the same. And if the designer had taken the time to do a little bit of short row shaping here to drop the front slightly, I think it would be an even more comfortable fit. Having said that, I think that I'll be wearing this sweater a lot. For starters, I'm really happy with the color that I chose. This is a Farmer's Daughter yarn, Farmer's Daughter dyed yarn called the Spinster's Daughter. It is a yarn that is spun by the Spin Cycle Mill in Bellingham, Washington. The lovely ladies there who have brought you beautiful yarns like Dyed in the Wool and Dream State. This is the same yarn base as Dream State, but it's spun without dyeing and then sent to the Farmer's Daughter fiber where it's dyed. This color is called Namoo, N-A-M-O-O, I believe, and it's a beautiful burgundy color. I love it. I'm so happy with it. I tried to make sure that I knit the sleeves to be a comfortable length, so they are quite long. I could probably pull them down over my hand a little bit for a cozier fit. I have lots of room in the armpit, as you can see. This is a very generous fit, so it's not snug or pulling in any way. I'm very, very happy with this sweater, and I think that I would knit it again. But like I said, the only thing I think that would improve this fit for me was if there was a little bit of a drop right here. I absolutely think that this is a sweater that would be great for an adventurous beginner. It's all knits and purls. There's nothing too fancy about it. There are lots of short rows though. So if you have knit short rows, or if you're interested in trying to knit short rows, I think that this would be a great first sweater for you. There are a number of finished projects on Ravelry, so you can go through and see how this sweater might look on a body that is similar to yours. I'm really happy with this one. I think that I would knit it again. And I'm actually quite happy with the length that I got. I will insert a picture here of just how much yarn I had left. It was minimal. And I was very careful to try and use up every scrap of yarn because I wanted to get as much length as I could out of this sweater. When I knit this sweater, I started at the top, as the instructions have you do. You knit the back to the armpits, and then you come up and pick up stitches and knit the front to the armpits, and then you join in the round and knit down. I knit down until I had finished one of my balls of yarn. I had been alternating skeins, through the body section because I didn't want to get any aggressive pooling. Once I had finished one of the balls and had the other one sort of on with a little bit left over, I decided to go back and pick up the neck stitches and knit the neck, and then I knit the arms. So I knit one arm and I had no problem, and then I went to pick up the other arm, I can't remember which one, and it turned out the skein that I had picked up was much darker than the other one, visibly darker. So I had knit maybe 4 or 5 inches on, I think, this sleeve. And I wasn't happy because it was very, very visibly different. And I thought that I could get away with just knitting the sleeves without alternating. But for the first sleeve, that worked out fine. I didn't get any weird pooling. But for the other one, the skein was much darker. So I pulled back the skein, or my sleeve, until I only had, I think, 1 or 2 rounds left after I had picked up the stitches. And I grabbed another ball of yarn and I started doing helical knitting, which is knitting in the round using 2 balls of yarn, alternating 1 yarn each round to ensure that you're blending out that color. So while that skein was darker, as I blended it out with another skein, I think it looks fine. And now it's not as obvious that there was a darker skein. I will include a link to a YouTube video below for instructions on how to do helical knitting if that's something that you're interested in. I used helical knitting for the one sleeve, which is sort of weird, but it's what I did. And then I used helical knitting from the armpits down to try and blend out any irregularities in the hand-dyed skeins that I had. So once I had finished both sleeves and I had finished the neckline, I knew that whatever yarn I had left was going into the body. So I started knitting down from the body and I knit as much as I could. At one point I weighed how much yarn I was using per inch of length so that I could sort of guesstimate how much I wanted to have left at the end to knit my 2.5 inches of ribbing. So for me, I think I needed 45 grams left. So I just knit until I had about, I think 48, because I wanted to give myself a little leeway. And then I knit my ribbing and I did the Italian sewn bind off. Is there anything else that was unusual about how I knit this sweater? I don't think so. I knit a 1x1 ribbing at the neckline, which is kind of hard to see because this is a very deep burgundy color. But I knit a 1x1 ribbing here and did an Italian sewn bind off. For the cuffs, I did 2x2 with an Italian sewn bind off. And for the hem, I did again 2x2 with an Italian sewn bind off. I would absolutely recommend this pattern and the yarn. Okay, so I'm really liking the way that the yarn knit up. It was very easy to knit, very comfortable knitting. It's a very round and plump and kind of bouncy yarn, so I never was having problems with splitting. And after blocking, it's just a really cozy, very sweatshirty kind of feel. So I think that I'm going to be wearing this sweater a lot this winter. The other thing that occurred to me was if I wanted to knit this sweater again, or I could do it on this, I might do it on this one, but you could add embroidery very, very easily because this sweater is just a blank canvas. It's just a very plain sweater. And so if you were feeling it, you could add a bit of embroidery to it too, which I think is becoming more and more popular in knitting circles. So that is my Sunset Sweatshirt. It is a pattern by Jessie May Design. Jessie May, again, is super size inclusive. Wow, the sizing on her sweater patterns can't be beat. She is making patterns for every body, and she's also modeling her sweaters on every body so that you can be assured that if you were interested in knitting one of her sweaters, you could find someone who looked like you, who would be wearing your sweater, to give you the confidence to knit it for yourself. I do have a couple of extra things off my needles. One of them was my October socks. These are a pair of DK weight socks that I knit in the DRK Everyday Sock pattern by Andrea Mowry. I simply used the same pattern, which is written for fingering weight, but because I was using a sport weight and I knew that for sport weight socks, I usually knit them on 56 stitches. I used whatever stitch number was closest from Andrea's pattern, and I used a 2.75 millimeter needle to make these toe-up socks. So here's one, and here's the other. They're very, very fall, very October. And the yarn I used was Knitspin Farm Targhee Sport Weight, which is a sport weight yarn. It came with this coordinated. I'm having difficulties talking today. It came with a coordinating mini in this very orange colorway, and as some viewers and I were commenting, these patterns, this sock pattern always looks much like a penis to me until it's on a foot, and then it looks fabulous. So these are some DRK Everyday Socks off my needles, probably going in my sock basket, my gift basket. My daughter is having a sleepover in a couple weeks. She's having 5 friends come over, so I'm thinking that when they come over, I'm just going to set out some socks for everybody and they can pick their favorite pair. So I think these socks might go into that general sleepover sock pile. I have finished a couple of other projects which I started and finished in the last couple of weeks, so you haven't seen them. One of them is the beginning of my Christmas gift knitting. When I saw this pattern come out, I knew that it would make for great Christmas knitting. It reminded me in some ways of the Sophie scarf, in that it's just a little accessory that you could make really pretty with your choice of yarns and knit up in not too much time. So for this year, my pattern that I'll be knitting more than once is the Pressed Flowers Kerchief. This is a free pattern. It is on the Hobie, I believe, website, and I will put the name of the designer here because I'm blanking. This is a sweet little accessory that you can knit up probably from stash yarns and gift this holiday season. I chose to knit mine in sport weight yarns. I believe the pattern is written for worsted weight or DK. I simply just added pattern repeats. So the pattern, I believe, tells you to knit 6 flowers, and then you're kind of at the bottom turning point, and then knit 6 flowers up the other way, and you've got a little triangle. For me, because I was using much lighter weight yarns, I chose to do, I kept going. I just kept going until I felt like it was long enough. And I made 11 flowers. So there's 11 flowers along one side, and then this one little one in the middle where you sort of change directions. And then again, I did 11 on the other side, decreasing. And that's my little pressed flowers kerchief. Now, the original pattern is supposed to be 30 inches across the top. I don't know what mine is. Let's measure it together. It's more than 30. It's about, it's about 36.5 inches across the top. I'm actually like that it's a little bit wider because it makes it easier to tie around your neck. So I think if I was to wear this, I would cross it in the back and do a little tie. If you wanted to, you could double knot it to make sure it stays put. And then it would look like this. Oh, what a sweet little accessory. And I think that this is something nice that you can put on. It's tiny, so you can wear it underneath your jacket, or as an accessory. If you get too warm, you can simply take it off and put it in your bag. It's not so big and bulky that it will become sort of awkward to carry around. So yes, I have tied it in the back, as you can see, but you don't have to do that. You can wear it however you like. You could pin it. You could use a little shawl clampy thing. For mine, I used 2 sport weight yarns. The main color, which is a deep green kind of color, is a yarn by John Arbin called Yarnadelic. It's a sport weight yarn, and I got 100 gram skein of it. And out of that 100 gram skein, I think I used 47 grams. So I have enough of my background color to make another scarf. That's foreshadowing. You'll see a little later my plans for future knitting. So the contrasting color that I used was leftovers from my tessellated vest that I made last year. I'll pop a picture of it here. This is a yarn by Spin Cycle. It's their Dyed in the Wool, which is a sport weight yarn, and it's called Every Rose. And I started at this end, and I love the way it just sort of variegates as you go through. I think it's a beautiful effect. Now, there are other yarns that you could use that would be equally beautiful. If you had hand-dyed yarn, I think that would be fabulous. If you had little scraps of things and you wanted to stripe it, I think that would be great. I think this is a great project for using up odds and ends of your yarns. And all I would do is match the yarns. So if you were using a DK weight precious yarn to do the flowers in, match your background color to that. Use an appropriately sized needle for that size of yarn. So for this yarn, because I was using sport weight, I chose to use a 3.25 millimeter needle, which I think gave me a really lovely drapey gauge. And I would knit it until your scarf from your starting point to your center wraps around you nicely, whether that's 15 inches, which is half of what the pattern recommends you to do, or longer if that's what you prefer. And then once you get to the middle, do that little turning flower and then work your way back. I was, again, playing a little bit of yarn chicken, and I chose to weigh my yarns at strategic points to make sure that I would have enough. I had 4 grams left over. But if you have a scale, you may find that useful to knit to the halfway point of your yarn, once you're there, just turn around and start heading the other direction. But I think that this is going to be my gift knitting for this year. I'm going to make at least 2, maybe more of these scarves. I think they're just precious, and I think they're lovely and easy to wear. And that again is the pressed flower kerchief. And there are many, many pressed flower patterns out there. I believe there's a cowl. There's a shawl. There's a vest, a sweater, a cardigan. There may be some mittens and a hat. I don't know. There's so many. But this one was a free pattern, and I had the yarn in my stash, so it was sort of a perfect combination. The last thing that I have completed in the last couple of weeks is my good friend Gloria. This is Gloria. Gloria is one of the series of portraits from the Murder Mystery series by Diana Waters. Diana Waters is a cross-stitch pattern designer from Canada. She lives in Ontario. And she has been coming out with a series of murder mystery rooms based on the idea of 5 roommates living in a home, and each of the roommates decorate a room in the house. So you cross-stitch that room, and each room has a hidden clue as to who the murderer was. So there are 5 rooms. Each room has a clue: who, what, where, when, and why. And each of the rooms has a corresponding portrait for the person who designed that room. So this is Gloria. And Gloria designed the greenhouse, which I finished and is sitting in my cupboard just over there. I finished the first 3 rooms of this house. I have the 4th room, which is Kiki's kitchen. I'm excited about Kiki's kitchen. There is a bloody dish towel. So that's exciting. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it. It could be that once I've completed all my Christmas gift knitting, that's what I'll start to do as sort of a reward and a change of pace. I would like to get to it sort of later this year. So I'll let you know if and when I pick up Kiki's kitchen, that kit. The rooms are a lot more work than the little portraits are. This did not take me very long at all, and I think it's very sweet. I also love that each of the roommates is very individual and a very different sort of person. I think Gloria is really cute. One of my favorite features, which is maybe hard to see, is her little pink hoop earrings and her space buns. So that's Gloria Gibson. She is one of the 5 roommates. I don't know if she's a murderer or not. I will let you know when I have my 5th and final room kit, and I have worked out what I think all of the clues lead to. It's been really fun working on this project. It's obviously a long-term project. Each of the rooms take quite a while, and they're not all out yet. So it's been fun to just sort of pick away at them. And when I was in Calgary for Knit City, I met a viewer who was inspired to join me along in my quest to solve this murder mystery. So hello, and I hope you're doing well with your investigations, and let me know in the comments below if you have any theories about what's happening. I don't have anything new, but I'm looking forward to Kiki's kitchen and that bloody dish towel, let me tell you. And that is all of the finished objects I have completed in the last couple of weeks. I have been working on some more Christmas gifts, and the one thing that I picked up was a skein of yarn that I purchased when I was in Italy. I bought it for my husband because I thought I would knit him some socks because he's a very patient guy, and I think that he deserves nice socks. So this is a skein of Arnie and Carlos's Perfect yarn. If you don't know what this is, it is some yarn that is dyed to make it easy for you to switch from a cuff to a heel to a foot, with color changes that sort of indicate where you need to change what you're doing or insert a new feature into your sock. So this sock started with this deep blue color, so I started the ribbing there. When the color changed, I switched from ribbing to plain into this sort of self-striping pattern. Now for me, because I'm making 72 stitch socks, the self-striping pattern is not working 100% with the number of stitches that I'm using. I am using 72 stitches as the pattern on the inside of the ball band recommends, but the stripes aren't quite going all the way around. As you can see, like here, there's a bit of a gap between where the stripes start and finish. I don't know if I'm particularly troubled. I would have liked it to work out well, but it's not working out 100%, and you know what, that's okay. So I kept going down the leg. When the solid color came back in, I knit a heel flap and gusset, which stopped like just about at the very end of my heel flap, so that's okay. And then I started on the foot. Now, the foot needs to be a total of 9 inches before I start the toe. And my foot is currently, today's all about measuring, isn't it? My foot is currently 7.5 inches. So I need to knit another 1.5 inches and then the toe. I don't love that the self-striping color quit before I was really well established into the foot. I mean, it's probably more than half of the foot, but I understand why it is. They were trying to create a hand-dyed sock that would fit a variety of sizes. But the reality is that it's hard to make a sock yarn that would work well for a smaller woman's foot and a larger man's foot. That's just how it is. And I've sort of resigned myself to the fact that I may have to choose a different yarn for the toe, because I'm not sure there's enough of this blue in the middle of this ball to get me all the way to the toe. I mean, time will tell, and I'll let you know. These socks, in part, were a bit of an experiment because I'd never used this sock yarn before, and I thought it might be fun to give it a try. I don't hate it, but I don't think I'll be choosing this yarn again. And partly that is due to the fact that it's just not meant to be, well, it is meant to cover a range of sizes, and the reality is that doesn't always work. So I think that this will be the only pair of Arnie and Carlos's perfect socks that I make, and that's okay. I'm happy to have tried it, and in a way I'm happy to have been using some of the patterning self-striping sock yarns again. That is sort of how I started making socks. When I first was a sock knitter, I got into it because you could buy these crazy self-patterning sock yarns, and I was fascinated by them. I just thought they were so cool, and I used to knit them on my coffee breaks at work or at lunch, and the people that I worked with would watch me and see, oh, like what color's coming next or what's going to happen next. And it's not just self-striping in the way that these socks are self-striping, because it's just stripe upon stripe upon stripe, but there is sort of a Fair Isle and more patterny effect that you can get in some of those commercial self-striping sock yarns. And I haven't used them in years, and it's been fun to try them again. I have another ball hiding in my stash. It's from West Yorkshire Spinners, and it's one of their Christmas holiday sock yarns, which does the same thing as this Arnie and Carlos sock, but maybe in a little bit more, I don't know, it does it a little bit better, and it is not meant to be knit with one color in the ball for the cuff and then the heel and then the toe. So if you wanted contrasting colors, you could add that yourself, and I think that's a better way to go. Knitting from experience and having tried this perfect yarn, I'm happy to have tried it, but I don't think it's for me. Having said that though, this is some Regia yarn, and this is going to be some hard wearing socks. Like the Regia, it's a bit of a rougher, it's a bit of a more robust yarn. It's got nylon in it, and so I'm pretty sure that these socks will last a very, very long time. So once I've completed them, and if I have enough sock yarn for that toe, I'll let you know. If I don't, it's not the end of the world. I'll just go to the stash and find something that would be sort of coordinating, although it's going to be obvious. We'll see what happens. And you know what? You'll find out what happens in the next episode. Cliffhanger. The other thing that I have picked up in the last couple of weeks is a crochet project. Now, I do crochet from time to time. This fall I finished my Jethro cardigan, which was a lot of fun to make granny squares. But recently, Labby Anime has come out with a new pattern called Le Triangle Granny exclamation point. And it is simply a granny triangle using scrap yarns and a little shell edge. And I got super excited about it when it came out. It just seemed really sweet, a great way to use up yarns that you have in your stash, and a nice way to create sort of a colorful accessory for this fall. And crochet is so fast. So I cast on. I gathered a bunch of yarns that I had. A lot of them are little 20-gram minis. Here's my little basket that my daughter crocheted for me, which she said she'd never do again because she didn't like this stitch. But I have this one and I love it. I popped in a whole bunch of these 20-gram minis that I have, mostly from either leftovers of socks that I have knit, or Polka Dot Creek, which is a dyer in Airdrie, Alberta, has a wide assortment of 20-gram minis for DK yarn, which I use for my Jethro cardigan, or fingering weight yarn. So I had a whole bunch of ones in stash that I had purchased to make socks with, or I had little bits of leftover sock yarn from colorwork socks that I had made. I also had some solid whole skeins. These are 50-gram skeins that I threw in to add to the color diversity. Here's a nice red. And I cast on. Is cast on what you call it when you're crocheting? I started. And the pattern is very simple. And because Amy of Labby Anime uses written instructions as well as crochet charts, it's helping me to learn how to read a crochet chart. So that is also kind of fun. I have crocheted this much of a little triangle. I'm trying to incorporate lots of different colors and lots of different sort of depths of colors. So I'm really happy that I had this like deep navy and then this sort of brassy deep color to balance off some of the crazy, almost neon-y colors that I'm using. And again, I'm just sort of, in a way, I'm following Amy's color scheme that she's written out. And in a way, I'm sort of adjusting as I go. So there will be some more softer sections and there will be some more bright colored sections. And it's just been really fun. Now, the key to this is going to be still thinking that it's fun when I get to the point where my rows are really, really long. It's super easy to crochet, short little rows like these. Oh, that's fun. And then you're changing color. That goes really quickly. But even now I'm getting to the point where each color row is taking a longer time. And that's okay. I'm still enjoying it. But at some point this may become a slog, and I'm going to need to remember that I think that this is going to be a really fun winter accessory that I can wear throughout the winter. I'm loving the drape. Is really great. I'm using a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook, and I do think that I'm a bit of a tight crocheter, but it's working really well. And as I said, I like the drape. Every once in a while I stop and I weave in all of the ends, because let me tell you, there are a lot of ends. I'm changing yarns almost every row, and occasionally I do 2 rows, but the 2-row passes are rare. So there's lots and lots of ends, but I do find that they're kind of quick to weave in. And what I'm doing is every time I start a new row, I crochet over the 2 ends that I have. So the yarn I just cut and my new one, I crochet over them. And then I'll come back and weave those ends in just a little bit better. I know some people just do the crochet over version, but I want to make sure that I'm not getting any loose ends coming out. I haven't snipped my ends because when I knit, I tend to leave all the ends in until it's been blocked. And there's something about the blocking process that really locks the ends in, and then I'll clip them all up and tidy it up. But for now, I'm doing what I do with my knitted projects and leaving all those ends dangling. and then I'll snip them at the end. This has been a super fun project, and honestly I think that I can crochet some of these up in the same way that I'm crocheting that pressed flowers kerchief, and just make it long enough to wrap around yourself. As I already said, crochet is so fast and it uses up so much yarn, and it's just been really fun. So it could be that I crochet up a couple of these as well. The difference though is that this is a right triangle. So this depth is always going to be a bit longer than for this scarf, which is not a right triangle. It's more wide than this is deep, if that makes sense. So it could be that I make some of those up for Christmas. I don't know. Time will tell. But for now, I'm really enjoying it. It's lots of fun. And I think that I'm looking forward already to adding more colors to it. I'll let you know how much yarn I use at the end in total. I'm not going to weigh each individual little skein because I honestly don't know how much I started with, but I'll weigh the whole thing at the end and I'll let you know. But it's a super fun project, and if you're interested in crocheting yourself a cozy shawl this winter, I can recommend this pattern. It's very, very beginner friendly because I don't think of myself as a very experienced crocheter. I can do granny squares and I can do granny stripes, which is essentially what this is, but not much more. So this is really up my alley and I've been really enjoying it. I have some future knitting plans, mostly revolving around gift knitting. The first one is using up my leftovers from the pressed flower kerchief that I've already knit. So this is the John Arbin Yarnadelic. Apparently Yarnadelic colorways are all named after songs. Thank you very much, Clifton, for letting me know. And this one is named Indigo Dust. It's a sport weight yarn, and I'm going to be pairing it with this spin cycle yarn called Cold Comfort. And this is a skein I just pulled from Stash. So this kerchief I think will look a lot different from the other one, and I think that's great. It won't use this whole skein of spin cycle though, and I do have plans for the leftovers. There's a hat called the Wild Iris hat that came out recently. The main color of this hat is knit with a fingering weight and Surrey alpaca silk, so it'll be nice and fuzzy and warm. The body of the hat is knit in a 1x1 rib, but the brim is knit in brioche, and you use the beautiful fluffy and fingering weight yarns held together with a spin cycle type yarn. So I'll probably be using the leftovers of this for the brim of that hat. There's also a Vera Valimaki hat coming out, hopefully in the next month or two. I've seen pictures of it on Instagram, and she sent it to Test Knitter, so I'm hoping that the pattern comes out soon. It's a beautiful Aran weight cabled, I believe it's Aran weight. I hope it's Aran weight. Regardless, it's a beautiful cabled hat knit in a tweedy yarn where the tweed neps are like neon colors. I think she used a Hedgehog Fibers tweedy, which is either DK or worsted. If I find out, I'll put that right here. And I'm fortunate enough to have a yarn store relatively close to me called Statement Junkie, which carries this yarn. So I'm planning a trip out there to pick up some yarn to make that hat for Christmas knitting. So the Christmas knitting is happening. I've got plans. I'm trying to take it one project at a time, but I do have plans, and I'm happy to be taking my time so that I'm not feeling super rushed in the lead up to Christmas. And the one last thing I wanted to share with you is my November sock yarn. A couple years ago, I had my daughter label a bunch of bags because she has excellent penmanship. And I haven't opened this yet. Hello, Blue. How are you? So let me see what my November yarn is going to be. The tag has fallen off, but it is called, it is some Targhee Sport, again from Knit Spin Farm, and it's called Wildlife Welcome. This is what it looks like. Oh, that is so lovely. I love the colors. I think these would make some nice hiking socks for one of my nephews. It says, the description says, even stripes of fox squirrel, which is gold. Whoop, can we see that? house wren, which is a red-brown, American toad, a possum, which is black, and baby screech owls. And then it's got this lovely sort of neutrally colored contrast skein for heels, cuffs, and toes, or whatever I can fit in. With this sock yarn club that I had joined to get all this Targhee sport weight yarn, she often would send a picture as an inspiration. So here's a little squirrel inspiration for this picture. Like I said, I think that these might be some nice hiking socks for one of my nephews. I have a couple of nephews who don't live in my neck of the woods anymore, but I think that they might appreciate some hiking socks. They're pretty active guys. So I think that's what's going to be on my needles for my November self-striping sock yarn. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you maybe found some inspiration for some Christmas gifts if you're planning to make some. If you're knitting Christmas gifts, let me know what you're knitting in the show notes below. I would love to know. I'm always on the hunt for new patterns that might be inspiring or make great gifts. I think hats and small accessories are often something that is useful and that you can tailor to a person's style. So I'm hoping that you have some inspiration for me. I hope in the next couple of weeks you find time to do the things that you like to do. I know I'm going to be probably working on Christmas gift knitting and trying to be cozy. It's definitely going to be getting cooler here, and I can see some cozy fires and knitting in my future. I hope you find time to do the things that you like to do. I know I plan on knitting a lot. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.